If you were expecting me to do a fusion dance joke, you're a weeb. Hello everybody, welcome back to some more FTB Skies. Did I just break something? Okay, no, I didn't just break something. I thought I accidentally broke something. Oh gosh. Okay, so, in between episodes, this thing has actually managed to fill itself up. I didn't think I was on here for about 5 hours, so I think me adding this extra layer and filling them all up with their pipes and stuff like that really sped this thing along, because now everything is all full. I think I'm just gonna leave this, because, in all honesty, this really doesn't assist me in any way, shape, or form, because I don't really need those anymore beyond this. So, yeah, I'm just gonna leave that. We got that achievement done. And now it is time to get ourselves a new achievement, as well as something that's really freaking cool. We're building a reactor. And you might be thinking, Cookie, you already built a reactor, which is this really loud thing. And to that, you'd be right, but this isn't just a fission reactor. We want a fusion reactor. And some of you might be saying, what the heck is the difference? And to that I say, just look it up. Only after you watch this video, though. So, in order for us to be able to make the fusion reactor, I'm actually starting to mix them up myself, we're going to need quite a lot of glass, as well as these blocks. I'm pretty sure I made enough, though. We're also going to want the fusion reactor controller, and then we're also going to want to grab the ports. There we go. Now we can start the building process, once I turn it back to daytime. Alrighty, so now that it's finally daytime, we can go ahead and start up on the setup. So what we want to do is we want this to be, I think, a 5 area? Yeah, I think that looks right. So then we just make it out like this, and we just need to make ourselves a little star pattern. It actually is going to be really cool. Then we're going to want to take ourselves this reactor glass right here, and then we're going to want to make, I think, like this, or no, wait, it needs to be like this. We don't want these corners to be the reactor glass. We just want to have little plus signs in the middle that are just the reactor glass, and there is a very specific reason for that. Now, the reason why we put these here is because we can't have any corner pieces being this reactor glass. Those will have to be the casings, and this way I use as little of this stuff as possible, because in order to make the fusion reactor frames, you need polonium. That crap is expensive. So then after that, we can just go ahead and then fill in, as I was trying to say, we can just fill in all of these corners down here, so that way this thing kind of makes a little circle-ish thing. I say circle-ish because, you know, it's not perfectly sphere, but it's Minecraft, so it's about as sphere as it's going to get. So then we just need to bring... No. I was trying to say we need to bring all of this inwards like so. There we go. So then after that, we just need to repeat the same star from the bottom all the way up here. And then we can just build out the rest of that. And then we bring this like here, and there we go. I actually made a few too many of the reactor frames. That sucks, and the reason I say that is because here, we don't actually want the frame, and then we also don't want it here and here. And then we also don't want the glass right here, because that thing needs to be replaced with something I'm pretty sure I left in here. I did. I just need one of these. It's called the laser focus matrix, and that is going to be explained in a little bit. So right here, we want this thing right here, which is the ports. We want those there, and then I want to change this one to... where's the thing? Okay, there we go. We wanted to change this one to output. There we go. Now that's all well done. And then we put the reactor controller right here, and this should be right. Oh, wait. I know what I did wrong. I didn't make too many of these things. I just forgot to put them in the corners. Oh my goodness. And there we go. Now it's done. I forgot that this kind of whole storage thing needs to be replicated on all sides, so I just sort of left it. That explains why it didn't look large enough. Okay, so now this thing is large enough, and now, once we go into here, this whole thing works. So there's 2 ways that you can make this work. One of which is to just generate straight power. The other would be to make steam, which I could then, in turn, make in here. Because of the way I'm doing this, though, I won't be doing that. I'll just be going for straight power, and then that'll just go straight into here. In fact, we could probably just put this flux plug right here now, and then send it over to power, so that way this thing will instantly start throwing power over into our induction matrix. So, I mean, it's not going to put any power in now because we have yet to turn this thing on. But once we do that, though, it'll actually be pretty cool. And there's actually a very specific way that we're going to need to turn this on. And to do that, we're going to need a few things. The first things we're going to need is going to be these laser amplifiers. I'm also going to need a few temporary blocks. So, I mean, why do I have so many of these? I didn't think I made so many, but you know what, that's fine. They'll serve for my purposes currently. So we're just going to need to build this thing up about to here, and then we can just go ahead and then start setting up these laser things right here. Those are very much facing the wrong way though, so we're going to want to turn them. I need to make sure that the red dot is facing this way. Okay, so it needs to be going for the direction that I'm currently facing it. Okay, cool. So they're all facing the correct way, and then I want this thing to be on redstone mode, so that way I need a lever. I can go ahead and put that lever right there, and there we go. So once I flick this lever, this thing will work. Now, these things on their own aren't going to do anything. So in order for us to fix that, we're going to need these things right here, which are called the lasers. And I need to make sure that all of these face in the good direction, and they need to be a block's distance away. So I can just put a bunch of temporary blocks right there, and I can put all of these onto here, and I will need to rotate them in the bit because they can't actually be facing that direction. There we go. I'm going to need to put that lever back if I want to be able to vein mine this. That's fine. Then lastly, I just need to put these flux points right here and then set all of them to their proper power sources. And then we could go up here and behold, all the lasers are going into these amplifiers. So these lasers go into these amplifiers, and then that goes into this amplifier, which then in turn goes into this one, continuously making it go upwards. Once this thing reaches a certain point, it will be able to then power this thing. So why I set this thing up is because in order for this thing to work, we first need this thing to be able to get jump started with a massive surge of power. How much power that is, I honestly have no idea. So we're really just going to have to wait for this thing to fill up to maximum, and then I can send it in. But it won't do anything unless we have the fuel in here. Now, there's two ways that you can actually fuel this thing. If we go right down into here, this is where all the fuel will go. Now, the two ways that you can fuel this are, you can have the deuterium and the tritium going in separately, and then they'll fuel this thing by fusing into DT fuel on their own inside of here. And with that method, you can set how much the thing will burn and how fastly it'll go. By doing straight DT fuel, I think it already goes immediately to maximum. That's what I'm going to do if I can sustain it. If I can't sustain it, then I'll switch over to doing it in separately, which then will mean that I'll have to make a few more of these things. But I mean, I have a lot of polonium that's just left over from other things, so that'll be fine. So then I just need to put this right here and then set that to DT, because that's where I put my DT fuel setup, which I have over here, and that thing is already like full and stuff. So once I set this thing up, it should start going. I want this to be in the daytime though, because once I start doing that, I want the tritium to actually be processing. So I'm going to need to make great care that I'm always away in the night. Because I mean, unlike the fission reactor, this thing can't explode, but I mean, it can get very bad. So we want that there, and then in here, we put this thing called the hull ROM, which holds 10 millibuckets of DT fuel, just to basically get it jump started. And then we want to set this thing here, so that way it can inject the fuel. Now, it won't do anything until that whole thing begins to work. I'm not sure if the DT fuel over here is going to be generating fast enough. Because, I mean, I have all of the liquid DT fuel I had going back into here and then just turning back into the other stuff. But once that runs out, even with it, I'm not sure if this thing will be sustaining. So we're just going to have to wait until this thing is fully powered for that whole thing to figure itself out. So once this thing reaches that maximum, then we can get back to this. So then while we're waiting for that thing to fill up on power, we can go ahead and get started on the next thing that we're going to be doing today, which is going to be this thing called the SPS whatever that thing is supposed to be called. And the reason why we're going to be working with this whole thing is going to be something that's going to take a lot of polonium, again. So in order for us to get started, we're going to want to have a block that won't disrupt anything if we put it on here. Like, say, a stone block, just so that way we can put that there. Everything still runs just fine, and nothing is getting interrupted. So after that, we need to put this thing called the SPS port right there. Then after that, we need to bring out these SPS casings all the way out along this side, because this whole thing is basically going to be a 7 wide thing. Then along the sides of this thing, right around here, we're going to want it to look something like this. And then we're going to basically want to kind of replicate that look on the sides right over to here. No. And then in each of these corners right here, we just need to put one of these blocks right into those corners. Not right there, though. That's bad. And then the floor of this thing should then look something like this. It kind of reminds me of a core from Portal. And after that, we're going to want to kind of do the same spiel that we did for there before. We're going to want a good bit of glass for right in this area. That'll then go upwards to the roof, which will be about 7 high. And then it should end up looking like this. I'm pretty sure that is about right. So then we just need to pretty much replicate the same thing on each of the sides, and those corners will come into contact, but they will not stay that way for long. So once all of those things are done, it'll look something like that, and then after that, we need to fill in these corners at the bottom like so that way it kind of resembles what we did with the fusion reactor. And then we want also to do the same on these top portions right up here, leaving no exposed glass. Okay, so I actually made a small mistake. I made this whole bottom part originally out of the SPS casings. I meant to make it out of the reactor glass because it'll work the same and it saves me on all of the stuff. Here now, as I said earlier, we don't want any of the glass to be exposed. I froze there for a second, but okay. So then we just need to fill in all of these corners like so. And after that, we just need to put on the SPS casings here on top of all of these glasses. Oh my goodness, I cannot speak for the life of me. Then we just need to fill in corner spaces over in these portions like so with the glass. And then finally, we can just go ahead and then stick these SPS casings on each of these positions, and I'm pretty sure I actually have one extra because that is all that we are going to need. And after that, we can just fill in the rest of the way with all of these things, making it all go in a little bit of a spiral, kind of like so. And then in the center, we're just going to need to put one of these SPS ports, but I also actually want another one over here. I'm going to put that one down here, just so that way it can be a bit closer to it, because that's going to be for something specific. Then we put this one right here, and then the structure is pretty much completely done. This is basically the superficial phase shifter. That's what it's called. Okay. Now, I did make an uh-oh, but it's like a minor uh-oh, and that is that I forgot to put something in here. So in this portion right here on this port, we need to put in this supercharged coil. You can put many more in here, but I'm only going to be doing one for the simple fact that that would take a lot more time, because then I'd need a lot more of these SPS ports, which means I'd need more of the casings, which means I'd need more of that stuff. So it'd just be a whole process that I don't want to do right now. So basically what that will do is it'll send in power into this thing, which will allow it to phase shift, I guess, thus making what this thing is supposed to make, antimatter. But in order for it to make the antimatter, we're going to need to pump in polonium in right here, then have power going into here, and I believe at the top up here, if I can set this thing to output, that will be where I exude the antimatter. Now, I did the math in order for me to get this, because the achievement here requires 5 antimatter pellets. In order to make that, we need 1,000 millibuckets of antimatter. In order to get that, we're going to need 1,000 millibuckets of polonium for each millibucket of antimatter. So that means that it's going to take 1,000 times 1,000 in order for me to get the proper amount for just one of those pellets. That's 1,000,000 millibuckets. But one bucket is just 1,000 millibuckets. So if you think about it that way, by me doing the math properly, because I also have calculators, I'm actually only going to need 1,000 buckets in order to get one of these pellets, which means I'm only going to need 5,000 buckets of polonium. I am nowhere near that. Oh boy. Now, this is actually a little bit of an issue, because I need this thing to make the polonium, but I'm fastly running out of fissile fuel. I have a fix for that, but I won't be doing that in this episode. I'll be doing it off screen after I'm done with this episode. So basically, I just need to take a bunch of the pressurized tubes to send this thing up to there, and then it'll be pretty much done. So we're just gonna want to send this thing up about this way, so that way we can take it up here. Hopefully I have enough. I think I have enough. Yes, I have enough. There we go. So once I connect that thing, it'll then be able to put in the polonium into here. And then once I connect that thing down there to power, this thing will then begin generating antimatter, not dark matter. But like I said before, I don't exactly have a very sustainable source of the fuel just yet. So once that thing is done, I will then begin to generate the antimatter with this whole thing connected. But you can all basically see how this is going. So yeah. That's the superficial phase shifter. Did I say that right? Yes, I did. Neat. Alrighty. The thing is fully powered. Everything should be ready. Hopefully I can sustain this. 3, 2, 1, fire! Yes, it's working! Look at that! It's generating so much. Oh my gosh, that's how much power is currently in there. And yeah, it's still going outwards, so it does look like we're losing DT fuel fast. That is a problem, because since it's not going in here fast enough, yeah, we're definitely losing the fuel. That is not good. Like, by far, very much not good. So, one of two things is going to happen with this. One, it's going to get to a point where it'll kind of equalize to where it's all going in at the same amount of time. Or two, it's just going to stop working entirely. But I mean, this is still pretty good, so we just need to set all of that to there. And I need to go check my induction matrix, because that's all going to be going into there. We just need to make sure that this little boy can handle it. Oh my gosh, we're at a TFE. Dude, this thing can hold 6 of these. That's a crazy amount of power. And our current input is at 800 KFE. That is quite a lot of power.
Tomorrow.
Alrighty, so I've got good news and I've got some bad news. The good news is that the DT fuel does end up equalizing after a while. I just needed to put something to make sure that the tritium doesn't go away during the nighttime, which would then cause the thing to shut down, which is why I have this ultimate chemical tank here pumping tritium in here and then pumping it into here when that needs to be generated. But the bad news is that's not going to stop it from shutting down, because every time I leave the server, this thing will shut down. And I know why. So this actually has to do with why I was having a lot of issues with pipes in multi-block structures with Mechanism. Whenever you leave the game and then come back in, there's a split amount of time where these things are not formed, and then they have to reform again. Well, because of that, that means that the reactor is not formed, which means it's no longer existing, which means it's no longer on, which means I now have to restart it each time. That is a bad thing. So that means that each time I get back onto the game, I'm going to have to power this thingy up and then flick that switch again to power this. So that way we can start generating our stuff. I mean, that's not as big as a problem as it could be, and it gives me some time to like generate a lot more DT fuel each time I leave, which I mean technically isn't really a problem because it ends up equalizing at about around 200 for the one that's just there, not with like all the liquid DT fuel that I've been pumping back into it. But I mean, it's kind of a letdown, but at the very least, this does work and it makes a crap ton of power. Almost too much, which actually leads into another thing I was going to bring up. These flux plugs can only remove so much power into something. So by taking the power out of this when it's like this much without limit, leaves no room in this network for anything else. So when I had other things that were connected to the power thing, they were getting backed up. I actually had to change this thing to dump excess steam just so that way it wouldn't blow up. Even my ethylene gas thing was becoming backed up because of it. So I changed both of those over to wind power, and now we are making a grand total of 1.07 million FE a tick. That is awesome. I absolutely love it. I'm definitely going to need to make this thing bigger at some point, but for right now, though, this is honestly really freaking awesome. Full transparency, I did think that this video was going to end a lot earlier, so I already recorded an ending for this beforehand, but we are not actually at the end just yet, so I already collected all of my rewards from the quest book, so we're not going to be doing any of that at the end of this one. But I will say this. I was able to fix my problem for getting the fluorite so that way I could keep up with my fission reactor. So now the polonium for the antimatter is no longer going to be a problem. And because I already collected my rewards, I was able to get this thing right here called the chemical crystallizer, which is where we're actually going to make the antimatter pellets. So hopefully having that there doesn't affect it. It shouldn't. It don't look like it. So then let's go ahead and then put that there. And then wire this bad baby up so that way it actually works. I know I said I wasn't going to do this today, but you know what? What the heck? I got the whole thing working out. It's working all better, and hopefully it won't cause any problems. If it does, I will find out soon enough, as my base will probably blow up. So let's pump that in there, and, oh yeah, I got to set up the power. So then let's go ahead, send that to non-toxic power, power surge, and then let's take a look-see. Wow! That actually looks really cool. It kind of reminds me of a plasma globe. It's actually really pretty. The people who made Mechanism did a really good job with this. Okay, so then that begs the question of how much does it take? It's a process. Oh, that's actually really sick. Okay, so for each process, each time it's processed, it's going to use 1 bucket of the polonium to make 1 millibucket of antimatter. Once we reach a whole bucket of antimatter, this will probably then be able to turn it into an antimatter pellet. I don't know how much antimatter fits into this thing, though. So that's a problem. But I mean, it's not really a problem, but that means that this thing is going to take a long time, which means I'm probably going to have to spend a lot of time on the server. But you know what? That's fine, especially since each time I'm going to have to power this freaking thing back up. So I guess then I'm just going to have to leave all these lasers powered. I mean, hopefully it doesn't cause any problems if I don't turn this thing on, which it very well could. But hopefully it doesn't. And I will say this thing too, if I was to blast this at anything else, this could end up actually destroying blocks, or even me. It's freaking powerful laser, but still, nonetheless, we've done some really good things here today. I'm gonna put on my reactor suit for this just because it feels more fitting. So, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out the last FTB Skies video. Bye-bye!